Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Medium's World. I'm your host, Bonnie Worth, and yes, I am a medium. I have been dedicated and committed to working professionally, utilizing my mediumistic connection to the unseen realms for almost 15 years already. I love being a medium. I didn't always love it, but I do now. I'm so grateful to be able to share not only these conversations, but through the work that I get to do, the healing, the messages, and being someone who can really reconnect the physical and non-physical worlds to serve as a bridge between heaven and earth. I feel very honored to have, been a part of all of the readings in which I've done, several of them over the last many years, but of course, still continue this day to utilize my connection to the other side in helping others. So before we move into our conversation with our guest here tonight, I want to take a moment just to bring us all in connection, all in unity and in energy. Settle a little bit of the nervousness, the excitement. I mean, as I'm coming into the call this evening, my heart is just like beating out of my chest tonight. So I know there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful love, not only from the people who are gathering here on the call, but of course from the other side as well. So let's settle all of that in and come into connection with each other. I invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in. You might even find it helpful to place your hand on your heart just to begin to help settle and bring you into a space of tranquility, a space of ease, just allowing for the busyness of life, the doing, everything that you've had on the go to just settle around you. Just to surrender, to let go of all of the thoughts, all of the to-do lists, all the responsibilities that you uphold in your life, to just settle and be present in this beautiful sacred moment, that we get to share with each other. The privilege of connection, the privilege of this conversation, the privilege that allows for you and I to come together at a time when it feels like community, connection, understanding, and what is the wisdom or deeper truths that lie inside of each of us are looking to be expressed in some form or some way. So as we breathe through the inhale and the exhale, we settle into the stillness, the quiet, the space deep within where our spirit presides, and also the space where we find our connection to the spirit world, to those whom we love, who are past, who have gone on before us, where we can be in presence, to hear, to see, to feel, to sense their love and our connection to them. The world of energy is very real, and its effect on us, even if we cannot consciously perceive it, is very real. The subtle energy of the spirit world is very real. And the universe loves us and knows that we don't want to be afraid. We don't want to be afraid by this fascinating world of energy. And as we become more attuned to our heart, more attuned to the spirit world, we grow more sensitive to it. And it is possible to sense and feel and perceive the subtle energies without fear. It doesn't need to be frightening. but instead for it to be a world of energy that is interesting, empowering, exciting, that comes from an impulse within your own spirit, but also the impulse of the spirit world and the higher energy that loves you. You might even consider this energy, this love, to be a part of your spiritual team of guides and angels, loved ones on the other side who are simply a loving consciousness that wish to flow and to connect, to empower, to bless you in so many ways with their healing and their love. Your loved ones, my loved ones, want nothing more than for us to know that they are safe, that they love us, that they rest in our hearts in this sacred place deep within. And that by us asking to know, to hear, to feel, to see, and recognize their messages and signs more clearly, that they are doing everything. It's an affirmative yes, an affirmative yes, as they work to connect, to protect, to empower through their loving embrace of light. And through this sensitivity, we know this light, we know this love. And rather than it making us feel vulnerable, that we can respond to this with a sense of something much more powerful, an unconditional love in the presence of fear, an unconditional love in the presence of darkness, an unconditional love when it matters most for us. And through this breath and this coming together and this conversation here tonight, there is a blessing of unconditional love. That it's bestowed upon me and bestowed upon you and bestowed upon all of us as we come into connection with the light of light, the love of love. And that through our conversation here tonight, that this blessing of unconditional love continue to be amplified, it continue to be glorified, it continue to be rejoiced in, not only from our own hearts, but from our spiritual team who are rallying, encouraging, helping, supporting, and initiating us to be a greater expression of what lies within each of us. And so let this be the prayer we speak tonight, that what lies within each of us be expressed, received, and held through this unconditional love energy so that it reflects more light, more acceptance, more harmony, more peace, not only in our world, but in the world around us. A blessing in our lives and a blessing unto humanity. And as I release this word, I trust and know that as it has been asked, so it is. Amen. 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 I am the light I am. Taking a deep breath in, and as you do, just allow your grounding cord from the base of your spine just to drop and settle, to hold you in this space, present in our conversation here tonight. And welcome. Oh my gosh, bring your awareness to our circle. Welcome again. Every single night as I come into these conversations, I am just bursting with anticipation as to what is going to be shared, the highlights, the aha moments, the healing. And it just every single night I come away in awe. It's always turning into, it's so much more than I ever even could anticipate coming in. So I know you're probably feeling that as well. I am really excited about my guest here tonight. Now, I'm always excited about all my guests. I'm a Gemini. I get excited about everything. But with it, this particular guest tonight, Amanda Danielle, and Amanda I've known for many, many years. Our journey began I don't even know. She probably knows. She's really accurate with all that stuff. But it began many years ago where we were brought together in support of journeying together, and our lives took a little bit of a different direction. And of course, as we've come back together, it's the beautiful way that the universe works in synchronicities and bringing the people and aligning us with those who can help support, inspire, and continue to encourage us to be the light that we are in the world. Now, Amanda Danielle has an incredible story, which of course she's going to be sharing with you here in a moment. She's a transformational life coach. She's a grief coach. She's an international speaker. She has really moved into her power, her light. And I'm so, so grateful that she has agreed to be a part of our conversation here tonight. Hello, Amanda. Welcome to A Medium's World.
Hello, hello.
Hey. How are you this evening? Are you feeling the energy, the excitement,
I'm glad that you mentioned your heart because I'm like, my heart's in my ears tonight. Like I was like, whoo. And I always feel that when you go into your prayer, it just like brings the whole emotions. It brings the roller coaster, it brings the power, and it brings the grounding. So it's kind of cool to be able to sit here and experience that for the last 9 days. And I got to say thank you for all the ladies and the speakers this week, because they have really broke trail, and it's been so powerful every night to be able to listen in.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Following the guidances, of course, which I know, is a big part of this, of, taking these chances, following through. There was a little, I had trepidation in doing this because it really puts things out into the world in a platform, a necessary platform. But it's like, I always find that I've been always initiating, right? There's always this initiating that takes place. But I'm so glad because again, my ego got in the way too, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I even said to Christina one night, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And she's like, no, oh my gosh, you need to be doing this. And I'm so grateful. And I agree, Amanda. I think each and every night, each of the speakers coming in, just trailblazing themselves and just really answering that deeper call that, of course, that you have felt, that I've felt in really coming forward into the world. I think now more than ever, our world needs this. We need the healing, we need the insight, we need to know that there are alternatives in terms of how we are coping, whether that is mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, and of course, where your story comes in physically. So I want to turn, of course, this opportunity over to you here to introduce yourself and your story to the group that's gathered. Just in sharing, when did you start having your experiences? When did you start realizing that the spirit world was trying to get your attention?
Well, it's really interesting because, as you know, and as a lot of people here know, like we all have our own journey. And as we listened all week, I was like, well, that's not my journey. Well, that's not what happened for me. Like, what? And it's so easy to get into comparison or think like, oh, I'm crazy, or that wasn't a part, I didn't do it that way. And the really reality is that we do have all our own journey, all our own experience. There is no right or wrong. And for me, I wasn't the little girl that talked to ghosts or had little friends. Like that wasn't me at all through my childhood. And a speaker earlier in the week was, comparing about the earth spectrum. And I'm like, I was the earth person for just so long. Like I was not, like, I was just like meandering through life. And it wasn't until, I started dabbling in hearing from mediums or curiosity of psychics, or, and going in. And when my grandma passed away in 2009, I was away on holidays and I felt horrible. Like I was we didn't have Zoom back then. There was no like online stuff. So I felt beside myself. So I went and I had a reading after. And in the reading was said to me, she started laughing. And I was like, why are we laughing? Like, we're here to connect with my grandma, right? And she's laughing because she's like, why do you care? She wasn't there. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of was like, well, that's interesting. All right. Not what I expected, right? Because at that point, that was the closest person. My grandfather had passed away and when I was younger in grade 2, and then my other grandfather when I was a teenager. So I really didn't know grief. I really didn't have the trauma. I really didn't grow up with, that turbulence in my life. So after that, I had, gone for guidance, we'll say, kind of relationship guidance and life guidance, like show me the signs right now. And it was so funny because just the other day I found a CD, and that was one of the psychic mediums, and I've listened to it over the years. And at that time I was like trying to fit it into my life. And the realness of it is that she was talking about like 10 years down the road, not what was currently going on. And as a medium, we all know that we share things, but it might not be immediate. So it was such cool confirmation as I, step into the past. So then when we started working together in early 2010, 11, I
I knew
believe
you'd
it
remember.
was.
I know knew
Yeah.
you'd remember because you're
I think
so
about the
keen on dating.
timeline of my life and the timeline that was going on and how I thought, life was so terrible at that time.
But it
Little did
was.
and it was.
And it
I had
was.
my traumas, I had my stuff, I had my things
Yeah.
that were going on, but not to the capacity of what I've experienced over the last years since, but in preparation almost.
Yeah.
So as we started working together, we worked together for about a year. And then do you remember I had a heart procedure?
Yes.
And I went to my heart procedure and I had collapsed after the procedure and passed out and hit the floor and come back to life. And when I woke up, there was like the nurses were beside me and I was like, how long have I been out? Like, what's been going on? And it was really interesting because I believe that was the kind of the pivotal point for me. And I remember you saying to me, so how did the procedure go? And I was like, well, not really good. And I remember in our conversation, as you were guided, you said, Amanda, you died and came back to life again. And I was like, what? So it was really interesting because then after that, I would have already been about 10 years into massage practice.
Yeah.
And then I started doing energy healing. I went to Theta. I got my Theta. I got bars access consciousness. I got Reiki, my levels of Reiki, and I just started becoming this energy guru. And as I was working with clients, like messages were coming in, or, I went away. My parents had my dog at one time and I knew something was up and I phoned them, but they wouldn't tell me. And then my brother says, well, this is just her crazy. She just knows what she knows sometimes. And I'm like, you're right. I do know what I know, and I just can't even make it up. So like, I don't know why. I don't know why that time when I was away, it was like check in. Anyways, so those situations kept happening. And as I grew and as I did that inner healing and built that trust within myself, because all through my life, I knew what I known, but at the same time, maybe it was the person that I was with that couldn't speak their truth. And so when I would share, whether I was lied to or cheated on or whatever had been happening, it was downplayed. So naturally I was downplayed or I doubted myself.
Right.
So then when we started working together, I remember there was 3 things that you said right off the get-go. And at this time, I'm thinking like I'm in the most traumatic part of my life right now, in my early 20s. Like it just seemed like, where am I going in life? And one of the first things you said to me was, thank you for being so open and honest. And I'm like, well, lady, I'm paying you. Like, what? Show up and be open and honest, right? And one of the things that I've carried even into my practice is if you're not going to get real and raw with life, life's not going to get real and raw with you. So it's really about peeling back those layers and getting down to the nitty. It sucks. It hurts. It's ugly. We all have that ugly, but we're either going to choose to carry it with us or we're going to tackle it and move through it. The second thing you said to me was that, or you were there and for your clients 24/7, I could email. And I remember one day I phoned you. We talked on the phone 3 times, and I was like inside out. And there was times that I would email throughout my journey and you wouldn't reply right away. But the coolest part was as I got to process and I got to think, and it wasn't using that codependency or that crutch.
Right.
And then the third thing, and one of the most profound for the mediumship journey, is you asked me what my word was. And I'm like, my word? Like, what are you talking about, lady? Like, and you said, well, is it God, creator, universe? And as I had experienced up until that point, I was just earthbound. I was born, I was baptized Catholic, but it wasn't ever, pushed on us or anything like that. There was no strong religion in my background. And it wasn't like I was at, our school wasn't, or our upbringing, or our community, we all just kind of lived. And so I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what my word is. I'm like, I guess it's angels. Like, I don't know. And it's been so profound because so many people have come to me in their life not knowing what they believe in. They don't. And however it connects to somebody is how it connects to somebody. I have friends in Texas that are the most religious God bless Texas, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to connect and bridge that gap from non-believers to the most is just so cool. And I would have never known that if I didn't know my word.
Wow. Wow. Oh my
And
gosh. It's
so that
amazing to
was
me, right?
really right.
We're sitting in those sessions, as things are coming in and we share. And I mean, this too, an experience of doing readings with people, you're just sharing what's coming in. You're getting the sense of what needs to be asked. You get the sense of how to direct someone. And in it, it's just like, you never know how that's going to unfold or the impact that it's going to have, in someone's life. So I love that. I love how, that has been, kind of where as you look back and you're going, oh my gosh, I was so earthbound. I was so caught. And that happens for a lot of people. I mean, we had another speaker, like obviously the other night too, where we get so caught up and entangled in our time-space reality in this earth that we're living in, the linear aspects of life in terms of our jobs and our families and, the expectations and money and all of these things, our education, we all have value. And I don't want to diminish that at all. But it's amazing how it can block or stilt us from truly knowing that joy, that peace, that well-being, that deeper sense of well-being that on some level we're all searching for. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then fast forward to, I had experiences with inmates. I've had experiences with transplant death. I've had, people waiting for their transplants and not making it and being there in those moments. So then it's just, maneuvering through people and allowing. I heard a phrase a few weeks ago that was so profound to me because it connected and resonated with me and how I've been on my journey, is that the grief honeymoon. So the grief honeymoon, I totally connect to because I really resonate when you see people, they go through the trauma, the experience, the everything that happens, whether it is loss or whether it's the days and days in the hospital or whatever it is.
Right.
And people are there. They're there you're there for the event. And then the years go by, the days go by, the weeks go by, everybody goes back, whether there's a funeral or not, or celebration or whatever you may have, everybody has their own normal life. And then we're here still dealing with not only just the anniversary, not only the day of somebody's birth, not only somebody else's graduation, not only somebody's, XYZ, whatever it may be. It's it's getting up to breathe that morning and not have your child go on the bus. It's getting up to breathe that morning and not having your mom to phone to wish her happy Mother's Day or whatever it is and whatever those situations are. And I've always been one to kind of not follow the rules or color outside the lines. And I just have always had that gift, I guess, to see it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are grieving and just to understand, and so when I hear people's stories, I really look at it differently. And having my own experience as of recent through grief and understanding, I mean, I really leaned into mediumship And for those of you on the call that don't know, in 2020, my nephew had an accident and was in a coma and ended up passing away. And in the early days of that event, I mean, to not go batshit crazy is an understatement, because it's a roller coaster. And now this is in COVID too. And so we're sitting on the outside. I mean, I remember driving. I was in Saskatchewan and I found out at night. I drove across to Alberta in the middle of the night. And I remember screaming at the top of my lungs as I'm driving and saying, hang in there, kid. Like, I just screamed and yelled. And when you talk about the physical, I just had this pain in my head. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So, you know, as we surround ourselves with people, whether it's toxic people or lively people or whatever, we feel that. And so when you talked earlier earlier in the call saying like my physical journey, well, I'm not going to say that that led into anything. However, it was a really, really interesting awareness, and being able to lean into those mediums in the early days, because I knew what I needed for me, for the rest of my family, for the rest of your loved ones, for the rest of, you know, people that are involved. They need to do what they need to do. And for me, I needed to lean. I think I talked to you in the first 2 weeks 4 mediums.
Yeah.
Because I needed to be balanced. And I know that I was basically the only spiritual to be able to understand.
Right.
And it's not that other people don't understand. I don't want to I'm not going to devalue anybody else's journey. But in the midst of everybody's traumas, everybody's turbulences, everybody's, situations, everybody deals with it differently. And if I wouldn't have done the 12 years leading up to that inner deep work for myself and that personal development and really understanding and doing my own healing, I would have never, ever graduated to flourish into where I am today.
Right. Amanda, thank you so much for sharing that, because, this is where I've said often we as mediums are placed in the middle of these situations where, there trauma is happening around us. People are grieving. There is, again, the emotional roller coaster, around the accident. And of course, him being in the coma, there's so much emotion, the fear that goes with that, and already the grieving, and all of the unknown aspects of it. We come into this place, and very often mediums were placed in those situations just simply to be that light, to be that grounding rod, to help to give a sense of just love, or just holding space for people as they make their choices. But I love that, as you say, that this also becomes necessary, that we're also taking care of ourselves, that we're seeking the spiritual support, we're seeking the healers, the helpers, because as we stand there in and amongst being the healer, the helper, the sage, or just that light, and in those moments, that we also need to be tended to. And so for you to look at, you're showing up for your family, you're in the middle of all of this, more, like you said, more spiritually aware or awake than maybe what several other people are that you were in your family. This also, I'm so glad, it's like, we lean into the people, lean into our support systems, into how we can move through, so we can show up for people. And I know, I have a similar story, when my brother-in-law died, and I remember I had a level 1 program, big workshop that I was doing, and I had people flying in, and my brother-in-law's on life support. And in order for me to be there with my family and to show up for everyone that was coming to this workshop, I had to lean into my healers. I had to lean into other mediums. I had to lean into them and just, seek and ask for that support, for them to energetically hold the space, for them to energetically help me to heal my own heart, help me to heal the vast amount of emotions that I was dealing with, just simply so I could show up and be there.
Yeah. And know yourself and know your science, and then it's not selfish.
No.
I mean, there was a night I remember I was sitting out and I took a pit, and I've always been one to, see in the clouds, see the signs, and understand that that's how they show up for me. And I'll take pictures and people are like, what are you looking at? Like, and it's like, if you know, like,
Exactly.
And
do you not see the angel right there? And they're like, no.
And I'm like, what do you mean? You don't see those initials? Like, am I delusional? I'm like, you don't see his initials in the clouds? Like, come on, people. Like, it's right there, right? And that was what kept me sane. Like,
Yeah.
that's what really kept me sane. But even more so, moving into level 1 with the mediumship course is understanding that those aren't crazy. Like, that is your inner spirits. That's your inner knowing. That's where you fall in what speaks to you. And like for me, when I found out how important numbers were, it wasn't just the craziness that I always see random numbers. Like, that
Right.
that was what spoke to me. And as you know, I mean, astrology is like a whole nother language for me, and I'm not even there yet. It's so curiosity, because there's so much that's so profound. It
Right.
makes so
Right.
much sense. So
And you,
seeing those numbers and seeing, like, it's just like, okay, thanks, buddy, or the smells or the taste, or, like, it's just so
yeah.
interesting to be able to continue to learn and understand that those are like, when we search for signs, or we want a knowing, and we want to, our loved one to be there, it's like, come on, where's the flashing green lights? Like, and as Faith just typed in, their songs were so huge. I remember
Yes.
I was driving across the bridge, and my shuffle came on, and this Christmas song, I don't have Christmas songs on my shuffle, but it was a song about telling mother. And I was like, I got it, I got it. And then to deliver that to my sister-in-law,
Yeah.
and at the right time, because it's not that you can barge into somebody's space or energy or whatnot and give it to them, because they may not be ready to receive it.
Right.
And to be
Exactly.
able to slide it in at an appropriate time. Or some people, I mean, we have members that, they are the furthest from thinking I'm the or like the closest I'm the black sheep,
Right.
because it's like, what is for crazy? But it's like, it'll just keep wearing off on you. It'll just keep wearing off on you. I'm just going to keep being me, and you figure you over there. And if you don't believe me, well, okay. But an unhealthy Amanda 12 years ago would have been like, listen, this is the sign, and
Right.
so really being able to understand your own self and understand your own journey,
Yeah.
and know when to hold them, and know when to fold them, and know
and,
when
and
to,
give
walk away.
and give space for other people to have their journey and their experiences, right, without needing to, and this is what I say, we don't need to defend. We're not here to convince anyone. We're not here in order to change their mind. This is all just our ability just to share what it is we're feeling, sensing, feeling. Even if you're sitting down and doing a reading for someone, this is just a matter of you're just the messenger. That's a big piece of it. You're just the messenger. How it fits, if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, that's not your
Throw
job.
it over your shoulder.
Right? I love that. That's
Here
what you
you
always say
go.
in class. I just like salt over my shoulder. It's just gone. Whatever.
Like,
Whatever.
it's like, I don't know why it is what it is, but it is what it is. And
Yeah.
you carry forward. But to me, I would have taken that personally. Like, remember when
Right.
we first started working together? Like, I was the fixer of all fixers.
Yes.
And it was like, what do you mean you're not going to listen to me? Now it's like, well, don't listen to me. I don't care. It's really no skin off my butt. Like, I'm cool with it. Like, I'm just
Right.
keep my conscience clear over here, and you do you. But I'm just here to, it is what it is, with no judgment. And I think that's the coolest thing, is
Mhm.
living a life with no judgment,
Right.
living a life as is, living a life as, rolling with it. And to be able to step into level 1 after losing Mason,
Yeah.
and understand grief, and understand it at a whole different capacity, and understand it as, understand death,
Right.
and that
Understand death.
we
Yes.
don't know when our time. And it's hard to tell members or clients that are, going through grief, that, well, if it wasn't in this situation, it would have been in this situation, like,
Right.
the person could have been driving down the street, or the
Mhm.
person could have been, and it is what it is. But the biggest blessing, I have to say, going through grief and going through like coaching and counseling, is honoring our loved ones. The
Yes.
biggest blessing. And I felt guilty off the start. It's like, why am I so connected? Why? It's like, should I be crying? Like, should I be crying more? Should I be grieving more?
Right.
Should this be heavy? And it isn't like it's not heavy. Like, I will break down and cry when a song
Mhm.
comes on. I will have those moments, and then pick myself up again and go through that. But it's almost like a guilt, but it was like a no. But for me, it was a knowing.
Right. Well, there's a bigger piece to this too, Amanda. This is just understanding, because as mediums, we vibrate at a higher energy field because we're so tuned in and tapped in with these higher realms of consciousness. And so when we have a loss, we feel a loss. Like grief, it's not that the relationship was more important to us. I just want to say this has to do with energy. This is all of energy. We feel
Even the earth
and
relationship, if the earth
exactly.
relationship wasn't as strong, I had to battle with that one a lot, like really battle with that one because I didn't have a strong earth relationship. And then
Right.
I have a really strong spiritual relationship. And
Spiritual.
it's like,
Yeah.
is that supposed to be? Like
Yeah.
it's so wrong. It shouldn't be mother, father, grandma, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, it just that energy, that vibration, and how
Exactly. And so when we lose someone, we feel the impact of that loss because we're feeling not only our own personal loss, everyone who's that is connected to it, everyone, the spirit that's coming forward. So we feel that grief like 10 times more. And it's not that we're grieving 10 times harder than everyone else. We just feel the energy of it that much stronger. But the other blessing in it is that we as mediums, because of the natural tendencies to transmute those energies and to allow that to be the channel and for us to be receiving that higher vibrational energy, we come through our grief. Not that we bounce back faster, but I guess in some way we're able to process or move forward through it. It doesn't mean the loss didn't matter. It doesn't mean we didn't care. It's just that we are positioned because of being the compassionate healers that we are held and healed during those times in a quicker state, so to speak, so that we can be there in helping and supporting those who are grieving around us. And we say, we can't professionally call ourselves grief counselors because in our world, and there's certifications and university degrees and things like that come with it. But when I'm saying here, that's really the position we're put into. We're put into being in counseling, in holding this space, and in helping people who are grieving. And so with it comes this innate or natural ability for us to process through through death a little bit faster. And it's simply because we're so intimate with death to begin with. We understand it, we hold the perspective, but we're just able to synthesize or work through that energy a little bit quicker or faster so that we can be of service.
well, and the other thing is it's going back to control and what do we have control of in life?
Right, exactly, right.
But when we
Yeah,
don't have control, are we going to be out of control?
right.
Or are we going to just honor?
Yeah.
It was early in Mason being in a coma. I said to a friend, I just messaged my mom this, and she's like, "You did not." And I'm like, "I did." She's like, "Seriously?" And I'm like, "But this is the way I feel. Like, I feel that he is gaming, he's doing his thing, he's loving what and I had a description of like, this is where, and the blessing that I see.
Right.
And she's like, wow, how's she gonna respond? I'm like, well, like anything in my family, they just don't respond.
Right? There's like, oh, it's just Amanda.
Right? So I'm just gonna keep saying,
Yeah,
even if I'm not feeling heard or whatever you want to call it in a lower vibration,
yeah,
I'm just gonna be like,
exactly.
whatever. Because you never know how it's going to impact somebody. And
Right.
again, being graceful and gracious with where they're at. I'm not
Mhm.
going to barge in and be like, hey, so and so, and why aren't you doing this? And how, because it's
Yes.
like this, it's been this long. I mean, it's just not that's just not how it works.
Right, exactly. And on the flip side, it also has to do because that's not what we want at that time, right? So we don't act those ways towards other people or take that approach because that's really not the approach that we want to receive in our time of need either, right? It truly is. I want to just kind of move forward here. I just want to, and oh my gosh, I love our conversation. It always gets like this, right? There's so much that comes up. I want to say, what happened for you? I mean, that moment, of course, obviously in losing Mason, but where you kind of went, oh my gosh, I really have to start showing up as the medium that I am. I need to start devoting my work and my purpose into being in service in this way. What was that for you? When did it get so solidified inside of you?
I can't pinpoint a time other than, more and more that kept showing up. That was like, well, here it is, and here it is, and here it is. And
Yeah.
then I would literally say, he kicks my ass every day. Like and I'm like, okay, and one of
Yes.
the coolest things with the numbers again, I was looking into investment properties and one came up. And so for the backstory a little bit, Mason's motocross number is 924. He was born on September 24th. And I went to McDonald's on the way to the property, and the number on my sticker was 429. And I'm like, oh yeah. Well, then a couple of days later, I was like miles away in a whole different city, went to McDonald's, the number was 429. And I was like, I hear you, I hear you. So I ended up staying at that property a couple times, and the other symbol is a heart. And there was a heart etched into one of the window seals. And I was like, I see you, I hear you, okay. But then it so happened that there was some stuff wrong there, and I kind of like put the brakes on, and I ended up being diagnosed like within days, and ended up having my MRI and going in for my brain surgery. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just hold the bus on that. So when it came around time that I got the itch to start looking at investment properties again,
Yeah.
I found one night just randomly, and it was 294. And I was like, all right, I see ya, I hear ya, okay. And it was so interesting because I always said in my will, I would leave it to my nieces. And so this property ended up being like 3 hours away from me, but half an hour from them. And I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
They don't go far. So we're going to, okay, we'll just throw it over there. So anyways, I couldn't sleep. Like, this is the first time in my life I'm like looking at the pictures, designing in my head, looking at it like it was, I could have bought unseen. Get to the property, look at it, jump out. There's a heart in the snow because the snow was melting. And I was like, are you kidding me? So it ended up being two properties. One was listed for 294. One was listed for whatever the amount was. And I'm like, well, I can't not like do this offering, right? So started lowball, went back and forth. And I thought, realistically, I need to go for June 1st as possession. Realistic in my pushing, I would say May 13th, because 13th is always an honored day because that's the day Mason passed away. So I always honor the 13th.
Yeah.
So I was like, ow, I can't go for May 13th. I had puppies due. It was crazy. I was like, I'm going to get realistic. So I put in my offer. Lo and behold, they counter offer with possession of May 13th. I'm like, I can't even make this up.
Right? Exactly right.
So then we counter offered back, and I left it, and I was like, I can't not offer for both properties that number. And I did, and they accepted it on May 13th. And I was like, all right, it is what it is. But it was like one of those crazy stories that you just can't even make it up.
Well, you can't. And that's just it. I love, and again, once the spirit world finds some way to get through to you, right? So once you start understanding numbers, they're going to use numbers all the time. If you start, the recognizing the signs of, the animals, if you're looking at, dragonflies, or there's a certain flower, if you're starting to notice that coming, they're going to use that all the time. It's no different with lyrics in a song. I mean, that's the other, the other piece that I remember too, is I was leaving my workshop the weekend when my brother-in-law was passing, and I said to him kind of the same thing you did to Mason. I just said to him, I said, you better wait for me. You better wait for me, because like I had a 5-hour drive yet to get there, and I'm like, you better wait. And I sat down in my car and I turned on the radio, and the song from Mumford and Sons, I Will Wait for You, is playing. Like, that is so synchronistic, right? And then I hear that same song, like, 6 more times during a 5-hour trip, right? Yeah. It's just those things that, we may not be receiving direct communication like what you and I are talking, but it's those signs, it's the symbols. And here again, I always, as I say, even at teaching the level 1, but I say often, is that if you think it's a sign from your loved one, it is. You wouldn't be having the thought that it might be from them if it wasn't. I mean, they're implanting that thought, they're impressing it upon you. So in those moments when you believe that it is, I mean, that, for those who are grieving and listening, to our conversation, that's one of the things to begin to notice. Like Amanda saw the heart in the snow. She saw the heart in the windowsill. In that moment, just just trusting and knowing, yeah, that's how they show up. It's not necessarily in a ectoplasmic expression of their, non-physical body. And I think that sometimes, we don't realize that they don't really show up to us in the way or form that we understood or we knew them to be. There may be a smile, a hand, a vision of things, but they utilize the world around us in which to communicate. So even, from a medium perspective, and as I teach in my program, when we go into the process and the practice of opening up this pathway to the other side, where we begin to recognize that the spirit is using everything in our external world to message with us, everything that is going on in our inner world to help us in understanding the messages. So we have to become very keen at paying attention, because everything becomes something when we are looking at spirit communication. And so this is where, again, because we never know how it's going to show up. We never know. Like, it's different with every spirit, every connection, and every loved one on the other side. But when we become keen and paying attention, what are those signs? What are the sounds? What's going on? What am I sensing? Oh my gosh, we see things, especially in repetition. This is the beautiful thing here too. Guidance and connection always come in repetition. So if you're seeing things 2 or 3 times over, you're hearing the same name 2 or 3 times over, you're hearing the song 2 or 3 times over, it's a message from your loved one.
And it's the sign of, we want a sign or a signy or sign kind of thing, but it's really our bullshit that stands in the way. It's just
Right?
us seeing the bullshit that's being
Yes.
almost needy or greedy. And it's like, hold the bus, sit
Yes.
back and understand. Like, they're going to be like, the hell with you, I'm out.
Well, and that's the other piece too. You said, he's like, oh, hey, thank you, buddy. Like, thank you, because they work so hard to create those orchestrations, to bring those synchronicities into play. And if we are casting them aside with our doubt, or we're dismissing it, it's like a waste of energy for them. We look at in our world here, we don't like to waste our time, and with things that we're not getting maybe feeling fulfilled with. It's no different with the spirit world. I mean, this takes a lot of energy for them to coordinate all of it. So when we can go into appreciation, when we recognize it, when we can say thank you, more of that, please, and thank you so much, and even if we're not understanding what it means, the more that we praise, the more we rejoice, the more that we're grateful for the simplest expression of love that they've brought forward to us. When we acknowledge it, it creates a stronger gateway for them to be present with us.
And if we're in our own way, figuring out what it is to shift our vibration. Maybe it's going
Right.
for a drive. Oh my goodness.
Right.
That fall I drove, and the one song was, I screamed, it was on repeat. I was smashing my steering wheel, but I had to get that out, and I had to, and to be able to shift that vibration, shift that energy, because if we're sitting and doing the same thing and expecting a different result, well, then that's just like, it is the definition of insanity. So why
Right.
are we going to get a different result? Why would our loved one show us a different result if you're not even willing to step into it? And it's no
Right.
different than working in coaching, motivation, in the health world, in whatever it is. Like, you can be so ready to lose weight or step into a higher, or leave the divorce, or
Mhm.
whatever. But if you're just going to not convince yourself, and you need a more bigger reason or whatever else it is, I mean, they ain't going to show up. Like, they're still going to show up, but it's
Right.
not going to be as loud. It's not going to be as, often, or it's not going to be, because they're like, hey, like,
Been
we're giving.
trying. I've been trying. I've been trying.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Okay, Amanda. I mean, I want to honor the time. Of course, I could talk to you forever and ever. And of course, want to make sure we take opportunity for any questions that are coming in from the group as well. Before I go into the questions, though, Amanda, we have a mix of people who are on the call. Of course, as you know, some of them mediums learning to glean more information, understanding about their own connection to the spirit world, but also those who are grieving or dealing with a big loss of a loved one. I would just, for those that are attending this event that are grieving, are dealing with a loss, what advice do you have for them? What do you really want to share?
Be truthful. Be truthful to yourself. If you need time, share that you need time. If you need space, share that you need space. And the ones that are grieving, don't check them out. Go back and check back in. I mean,
Mhm.
it may be in that moment that they don't, they're in a slow, but don't check them out. They're not aliens. I
Right.
mean, you need to, it's just so you do like it, going through that roller coaster. It's like, are we on like, am I in a dream? Like, what is happening? What is going on?
Right.
And then it's all of a sudden like people make you out to be the weird one. And it's like, I'm the one, like, we're the ones that had the loss. Like, why
Right.
are we the weird ones? Or, why are we the ones that, and that saying of, we'll reach out if you need anything. They ain't gonna reach out to you if
No.
they need anything. Like, oh, hey,
No.
by the way, can you come over and cut my grass? Like, people just like they're going through so much,
Right.
and being able to just check back in on the most random, as soon like you hear a song, you think of something, you see something at the store, something reminds you,
Yeah.
and honor their loved one. I
Yes.
cannot, I like the hearing extra stories still, I mean, 5, 10 years, whatever, just honoring that and just making them know that they still live within, they grieve that loss for life, not just
Right.
for the honeymoon. And
Right.
so it's so important, and and that's what I mean, like, it's so important to be able to check in on the certain events or the certain times. And it may feel hard, but it's hard being them. It's hard
Mhm.
waking up every day. It's hard,
Mhm.
going to work or going back to what is normal. This is their normal, so don't make it abnormal.
Right. A lot of times people will say, I just don't know what to say. I know that I've had that conversation with my husband when we're dealing, it's like dealing with loss. And he's like, I just don't know what to say. And I said, you actually don't need to say anything. You just need to say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm thinking of you. That's it.
And
You don't
even if
have
they
to
don't
write.
reply for
And even if they
days,
don't
like,
reply or anything, like whatever, it's just great to know. It's just
it's
great to
another
know.
world. It is
Yeah.
another world. And it's like the brain becomes mush.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. It's so much. And so if a person doesn't reply back or doesn't, maybe check in again.
Yeah.
Because if you're a healthy person, and this is the difference from 12 years or 15 years ago, Amanda, is if you're a healthy person, you understand it's not about you.
Right.
And that maybe that it was a bad time when they got the message, or maybe they forgot, or maybe this, go
Mhm.
gentle on them. Like,
Yeah.
I
Right.
literally won't hear from my sister-in-law for like 4 or 5 days. She'll be like, I'm the worst. And I'm like, you're not though. You're going, like, it is what it is. But if
Right.
there's a concern in the grieving, there was times earlier I was like, all right, I'll give you 3 days, but if not, I'm coming over there and you're gonna have a shower. Like, I'll
Yes.
drive over there, or I'll drive 3 hours. And that's the love and care, to be there for them. You're
Yes.
not up in their grill, you're not up in their space. You allow them to process. But for me, it's really important not to allow them to stay stuck.
Yes. To be there to help them to take those steps. And I love that too, as you say, to those grieving, just honor where you're at. Just you give yourself permission to just be where you are and hold yourself, hold yourself in times of whatever it is that you need. Even it's just almost we have to release the expectation of the grieving, just as we need to release the expectation of ourselves as we grieve.
And
Yeah,
you may
so
not be their
beautiful.
person, and that's
Right.
okay.
That's it. And that's okay too. Exactly. All right. We're going to move to questions here. Oh my gosh. Hello, everybody. It's so great. Oh my gosh. I know day 10. I can't believe it. It's so amazing, right? So amazing. Tara is asking, Amanda, have you ever told me the Christmas song? I completely do not remember.
It was interesting because I actually sent it to her daughter. I'm like, do you think it's time or not time? Because it was really, really early. I will resend the song. I think I know. I think I can find it and know it.
Yeah, like that. It's
I
like
have a whole playlist.
in the
I have a whole
moment,
playlist.
it, right? In the moment, but like,
Well, it
yeah.
was such a weird, like, I was like, what is this song? But the first line was like, bang.
Yeah. I have a question coming in from Sharon. Sharon is saying, what do you do to process your grieving?
For me, allow the time and space. I'm a person to go through it. So if
Mhm.
that means that I need to connect with a medium, if that means that I need to go read a book, or look and purchase a bunch of books that pop out at me,
Yeah.
and then at sometime flip open a page, if that means that I need to have a conversation, have a hard conversation, if that means that I need, just honor and nurture myself.
I think that's so important. And we look and understand that when it comes to, when we're sad, we can go to work, we can take care of our kids, we can meet the demands, we can travel, we can do all kinds of things when we're sad. We can clean our house, we can still show up for social engagements when we're sad. But when we're grieving, grief asks us to stop. It asks us to stop and just be present with how we feel, where we're at. So processing grief is that giving the permission, as we said, just to go gently, just to be in that stillness and, just do whatever is necessary for you. And in terms of what you can do that day, I think we push ourselves way too hard to process and move through it. But grief always will stop. It stops you. Like, I think, my dad has been gone now for, I always have to do this because I have to think of my oldest son, which is like totally ages me. But my dad's been gone for, almost 35 years already. And so, there's still times, and it's not just on the anniversary of his death or anything like that. And even though I connect with him and I have had lots of conversations with him and recognize his presence and his laughter and have that beautiful connection, there's still times where that waft, where that little girl I really just miss my dad. I just really miss my dad. And I've just sat down and I've just given myself permission to cry and just be in that moment and just let myself move through whatever it is that I'm feeling. And that's exactly the only way to go move through it is to be in it. And so we look at, healing, we need to feel it. We need to really give ourselves. And I think we prevent ourselves from, in some way, simply because of it gets uncomfortable. Maybe we're afraid of where it's going to take us. But in those moments, that's actually where, when we crack open, that's where the light comes in. When we give ourselves permission, I always say the medicine is in the wound. And so when we go into the pain and the sorrow and we're in our grieving process, that's where the medicine is. It's giving ourselves that opportunity just to be gentle, to love ourselves, to give some grace and compassion to ourselves in the process. There are a lot of different things we can do. Journaling is really great. Listening to, music that is meaningful is so great too. Just anything, spending time in nature. And sometimes, it's okay. It's okay to sit in one spot all day. That's what you needed to do. And that's just that, again, I truly believe that the grieving, you should have a permission card. They should have a sticker that they get to wear for a whole year afterwards, where they just get to do whatever they want to do, whatever they need to do. They get to say whatever they want to say. They get to act however they want to act, because that's how they're processing. I think we as a society have a lot of expectation of what that should look like. And I think, here again, we just need to love them, be in non-judgment of it, and just be there for them, lean in. We've talked a lot over the series, leaning in to people in support of grief. And that's really what we do as mediums. We lean into them, we give them that space, we hold them with compassion and give them the opportunity just to feel however they feel.
And
Without
hold them in the
judgment.
confidential space. I know when I look at
Yes.
it as clients,
Oh my gosh.
allowing them to share, because they may not have, like, they want to yell, they want to scream, they want to
Right.
say, my other brother was this or somebody was that, or because it's a process. It's, everybody is bringing in a different energy vibration and what they want and what that wants and
Yeah.
what they think they should do. And like, there's so much going on. So there are people that come in, and I just hold space.
Right.
I drove all the way out to Grand Prairie one time and just sat there for 6 hours and just allowed a mother to grieve
Right.
and be
Right.
there and understand. And and it's
Yes.
it's it's somebody not in the family,
Yes,
somebody
exactly.
not close, somebody coming in with a total no judgmental, no connection, no emotion, no, but just can sympathize and be,
And just
and
hold
just
that,
listen.
exactly, just be that compassionate shoulder, to be that compassionate space for them. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving forward, Desiree is saying, my 5-year-old daughter, oh, hang on, my 5-year-old daughter popped in and said about you, she's cute, nice, lovely. Oh, that's so cute.
a 5-year-old just has just no filter.
Right,
Love it.
exactly, exactly. All right. So Eleanor is asking, my earthbound, do you mean by earthbound, do you mean someone who has no higher power or spiritual beliefs, or someone who is a medium who just hasn't stepped into it? Because you mentioned earlier, as you were talking about your own life, how earthbound you were.
Right. So for me, I just was meandering. Like I guess it just wasn't even a conversation of what, a higher power is, whether it's God, creator, universe, angels, like a belief, a spirit. Like there was just no, like I can honestly say, like there just was no talk of spiritual around. And I don't know if that's because we came from my mom's family came from such a strong Catholic background. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like this intertwinedness or whatnot. And then after my grandparents passed away, it was like, church, what's that? You know what I mean? Like we only went when we went there, so to speak. And there's no right or wrong around that. Absolutely.
Right.
There's nothing, like that's just how the journey was for us. So for earthbound, I guess I just related as just somebody that doesn't know. Like you're just,
Mhm.
you're in curiosity of it, or just never gone into thought through it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really a big piece of it. So it can be one where you have no concept of a higher power. You have no faith in anything, you could almost say, maybe I'm going to say in judgment, or a word that comes to mind is, someone who's an atheist may be very earthbound. They don't believe in any of it, right? And so that can be a definition of it. But I think more than anything, sometimes we can have a context of faith or a context of beliefs that sit there. It's just that we've never ventured our own seeking yet. We haven't been pushed or drawn to seek for that deeper understanding. It's
Yes.
not until something pivotal happens in our
Yes.
life where all of a sudden, this event that takes place, or circumstance, where we begin asking those bigger questions, like, why am I here? Why is this happening? As soon as we start asking those impossible, almost, why answers, when we're like, why, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Those are such big and grand, answers, but that's when we become the seeker. And once we become the seeker, then we're no longer tied by this earthbound, or what we say is the egoic mind. The ego is directing the show when we're more in the earth, in our experience. Whereas when something happens where we start asking those bigger questions, now the spiritual sense of our self starts to be realized. And that's really where we make that shift from what is, feeling just like this is of no sense kind of humanity, of all of a sudden, oh wait, there's some sense to this. I'm understanding the deeper sense of what this represents or means for me.
And like you said, there was the pivotal points. And I can
Yeah.
say that I was blessed. We didn't have the cancers in our life. We didn't have the traumas. We didn't have, nothing really disruptive, to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
honest, which was, it
Yeah.
was, my grandparents passed away, but all my aunts and uncles are still alive. Like we didn't have, like the world back then wasn't even the world that we live in now, with
Right.
the drugs and
Exactly.
the runs and the social medias and the child traffic. Like it wasn't exposed like it is.
Yeah.
So it kind of was like, it felt safe in a small town. Like it was safe.
Right.
Like it
It's
was
kind of
just safe.
it's kind of a naive existence, right? When you think
Right.
of it, right? That's how I look back on, even on my life. Even, I shared yesterday about, I didn't even know what vibration meant. I just remember being told that I need to raise my vibration. And I'm like, okay, I'll raise it. But I had no idea what I was dealing with, because I had no context for it, because I was so naive in the shelteredness, I guess, of my life. Even though I had all kinds of, experiences or things, there wasn't anything that made sense to me. I had nothing to contextualize what those experiences were about. So it's almost, there's a sense of being naive to it. And I love what she says too. She just thinks it's just such a kind word. I know, isn't that nice? I love that.
Yeah.
It is. I think it is a very
Yeah.
kind word as well. Sharon is also asking, what is the number one thing that you do to stay connected to spirit?
For me, we won't talk about meditation.
Right.
No, I do want to talk about meditation, because when we talk about meditation, I am not like, Bonnie's like, you need to meditate. The books say you need to meditate. You need to meditate. This mind doesn't slow down. and like, oh. So to sit and meditate isn't for everybody, but meditation comes in certain ways.
Yes.
Music comes to me driving. Like I will, like people think it's crazy. Like I'll drive 6 hours, no problem, and then drive back. But in that time, that's where I really download. That's where my spiritual connection happened. That's when, things happen, and I'm like, oh, oh, oh. And so, yes, I had to really be that person to stop and go, okay, yes, meditation, but there is different forms
Forms of
of
meditation.
meditation to
Yes.
stay connected in the world. And Faith just popped up and said, me too, and in the shower. And that's totally something to
Yes.
the water,
Yes.
or the place and the space. For me, there's sometimes like I just need to be like, hey, I just need to run to the mountains for a day. Like I need
Yes.
to head out here. I just need to go get grounded, or I need to just go out and walk through nature, or do like I just need to shift that stagnant. I also will cleanse and clear. I open up the windows. I get in trouble for it in the winter because I will open up the
In the
windows,
house.
but that shifts it and keeps me grounded and keeps me
Yeah.
spiritual and keeps me in that. And then just there's so many ways and forms. Before I used to, when something would come through, I'd just be like, oh, a quote, and I would send it off to like so many people, and they'd be like, how did you know I needed that? And
Right.
that's what really raised that vibration for me. It was through words.
Right, right. And I love that. And so this is where too, we look at meditation as being, it's so important part of finding a way, because there's so many different ways to meditate. There's so many forms of that. So you have to, it's about finding opportunity for you to fall into what I would say, that gap where you can just be in the gap between space and time and connected to your higher power, connected to a sense of peace or solidarity of your own beingness. And so that's just, we find it in many forms. But here's the other key for what a lot of people find or struggle with meditation. I say a lot of people, mediums in particular, is that when we sit down to meditate, guess what happens? The thoughts don't go away. They actually increase because that's claircognizance. We're now taking a pause, time out to be still and quiet. And guess what? It's like now we become available. And so,
Yeah.
so much. So for mediums to think this is not about stopping our thoughts. This is just about being present with the thoughts that are there. We just want to be present with it in whatever form that is. We can slow them down. We do want to find our breath. And it's great to, I've had times where, I've been in complete void and a high transcendent experience within meditation. And that's wonderful. But I'm going to tell you the majority of the time, my mind is going constantly. And my mind is going constantly because I'm in conversation with the heavens during that time. So for mediums everywhere, this is like, it's okay if you can't slow those thoughts down or stop those thoughts. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, I know, like I look at, too, astrologically, there's a lot of thinking that goes on in my chart. There's a lot of connection that happens, but this is just where, again, I just allow it to be whatever it is. It's just being present with the thoughts that are there. And I also want to talk, I think, there too, anytime we get by water. So when you talk, Faith mentioned, Amanda, you said too, when you're in the shower and stuff, there's these downloads, these aha moments. And that's because water raises our vibration in understanding that we are, it's why we feel good when we go to the ocean. We go on holidays and we're by we're by a lake, we're by whatever, the river. It's because, we go to the mountains. All of those things are natural ways for us to raise our vibration. And they're what create the bridge or access point, so to speak, between the physical and the non-physical world. And so lots of times, if I'm stuck and I'm trying to solve a problem and I'm just not sure what to do, I'll go and I go to the bathroom, and it's like I'm sitting, I'm like, oh, there it is. It's like the moment I'm like, it's just this, I've got it. This aha moment that takes place. And then I come out of the bathroom, like, I know the answer, I know the solution, I know exactly what I need to do.
One of the other things for me is the creative therapy. So I
Yes.
am running out of walls to paint and ceilings to paint and projects to do. But the other thing that I found was too, is I started putting rhinestones on bottles and like making these bottles, and actually they have 924 in them and they're just blingy and whatever. But as I'm like, just single by single gluing these on, it's very, very refreshing for me. And it would be so funny because then I just like randomly send a message, because it's come like, that's when
Yes.
spirit's connecting to me, because I'm not focusing and thinking on anything else other
Right.
than this needs to go here, 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 and the glue to the, and
Yes.
it's so that's my even almost meditation, because it puts me down, slows me down, but I'm still doing something that it's accomplishing. And then once I'm done, I'm like, wow. But the power that goes into those,
Yes.
and like the vibration that bottle now has, it's so cool to be able to
Right.
experience.
And and so yeah, our creativity serves as a doorway of connection as well too. And so it's like we give our cognitive mind something to be busy with. So this can also happen when you're folding laundry, you're, vacuuming your house, you're
Yes,
wherever,
cleaning,
any of
cleaning,
those
cleaning.
menial jobs, right? Painting a wall, anything where you're focused on something and you've got a task at hand, it allows for the opening of the intuitive mind. And when the intuitive mind opens, then we come into connection with the spirit world. Further in answering that question, staying connected, this is really of a daily practice. This is about finding the things, Sharon, that help and light you up, that raise your vibration. And so, for me, meditation and prayer. I also dance every single day. I need to dance and get my vibration up. It helps me, even before I come onto the call, here tonight, it's like I'm dancing, I'm moving, I'm moving my body, because when I can move my body, it's expressing energy. And when energy can be expressed, I can get into connection. And so it's just one of, we have to find the ways that really help to lift our vibration. So there's no cookie cutter
Right
kind
or
of
wrong.
thing, but it's again, we've talked many times over the last few nights too, intention for the connection holds so much value. And so if you're just looking to, to connect, to have those experiences, invite them, ask them, but more importantly, do whatever you can to get back to feeling good. That becomes the key, right?
And Pat mentioned gardening, and that's one thing too,
Yes.
is digging in soil and grounding. I was never a gardener. I mean, I don't ask me to keep a succulent alive right now. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is work. Like, this is not, you just, apparently I'm not very good at that, but I started doing flowers like a couple of years ago, and it's just so rewarding to see them grow. I had some crazy
Yeah.
petunias and they'd like shed and come back different. And I'm like, wow, and it was such a, like, for me, it was like almost content, because it was like, there's beauty in everything. And
Yeah.
it's whether it dies and comes back again. It was just so profound, and just finding that thing for you. Like you said, there's no right or wrong.
No.
Whatever it is that lifts, and it might be talking to somebody else that's on that same kind of spiritual journey and sharing a
Right.
win, and
Right.
that is that vibration.
And the other thing too within it is just to know, like, the thoughts you're having is connection with spirit. So it's not even like you have to go through. It's great to have the practices that nurture yourself, that lift your spirits, that help to sustain and uphold your vibration. And it's important that we have that in our life, but also knowing, like, what do you do to connect with spirit every single day? I just talk to them. That's it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a thought conversation, and lots of times I talk out loud, I just don't do that out in public, because then people really do think I'm crazy. But when I'm at home by myself, or, I just have an open dialogue with my team, with my, I'm just constantly in conversation. And so that connection is something that is nurtured just through the simplicity of life, just in holding the thought, the conversation, the desire for the connection. It really is what it comes.
And
So
not to go back. Oh, go
Annette is
ahead.
saying keeping a dream journal has been so powerful for her to capture the downloads and find the messages.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And even especially like first thing in the morning, if something comes through, like I had some profound stuff not long ago, but then I went back to sleep and I wrote it all down, because when I woke up, it was like, what even happened an hour or 2 hours ago? Because it comes in
Right.
at that moment and you
Right.
may forget it. So put it in notes or put it down on a pen to paper or revisit it later. I mean, I got too many journals that'll make no sense to anybody, but
Yeah, exactly right. I know, me too. All of these scratch notes and little diagrams and things like that, but I know what it represents.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Make a mess,
absolutely.
make a reasoning out of our mess. That's for sure.
Right. That's exactly it. And here too, Annette, I love that you bring that up, because keeping a dream journal is great, because lots of times our loved ones come forward in the dreams, and dreams again are not linear. They're not, this like cut and dry kind of in connection or messaging, like even to dream of, someone dying, it's not that in that literal sense that that person's going to die. And I think sometimes when people have dreams like that, it can be shocking. They get very afraid, worst case scenario begins to happen. But anytime you have a death dream, it really is the shedding of the old way. It's like something within your life is that you've been working to heal, that you've been working to release, has been now healed and is falling away. So it really is understanding that dreams, as they in their messaging and the guidance, are not just exactly as they appear. That this is, when we're working with the non-physical realms, this is about being able to translate it in what would be the highest, I always say, look, what the highest point of light, what is the most positive that this dream could possibly mean. And so, in this, especially, we look at dream state being one of the ways that loved ones first start making their connection with so many people who are grieving, that when your loved one shows up in a dream, and I know probably this is a common dream for a lot of people, it's one that I've had very often, where I'm in a dream and I'm very busy in my dream. I'm busy, doing something, there's an event going on, or I'm wrapped up in a family commitment. And I might look and I see, my dad standing over there, standing by the wall, like there he is, he's over there, and I can't get to him. Like I can't, I'm so busy with what I'm doing, I can't go over to talk to him. I want, but what it is it's not that it was impossible or that I can't reach him. That's not the message. The message just simply is, hey, I'm here for you. I'm watching everything that's going on. Right?
Yeah.
Just knowing I'm there, I'm here. If you see your loved one smiling, you don't even have to have a real, up close, intimate, or personal conversation with your loved one in the dream. Just simply that they were in the dream and you remember them smiling at you is a message that, hey, I'm doing well, I'm happy here on the other side. Right? So there can be so many ways. And so dreams, dream journals are very powerful. But again, the moral, I guess, of my story is, just to kind of not look at it, take it too linear in your thinking on what's being revealed through that dream.
And just as us as humans, we just become really greedy, right? We just want more and
Right?
more and more and more and more.
Yeah,
Instead of like,
exactly. Right.
okay, thank you, till next time,
Yeah.
And it hurts, when you're in that, you're grasping at everything. But I will say that when I went through, and to go back to, me grieving, when I went through level 1, I went in with the mindset of, what's the worst that's going to happen? I might get some more information to help me through this process. And that
Right.
indeed is a lot of what it did, because it made sense. Like it just made sense of that process for me. So then
Right.
I could go deeper and I could go, wider with it. Right. And to be able just to allow to make more sense, not only for myself, but then to be able to serve everybody else and serve others that come to me for that reason.
Right. And I mean, it is. And as mediums, we get intimate with death. Death surrounds us. It's all about us, whether we've had lots of experience with death ourselves personally in terms of our own losses, or whether our family and connections are in a community, etc. Death always seems to be the center of, our world. And because of it, and we have a very intimate relationship with death. So that's a part of it in the program, is really helping to let's have an intimate relationship with grief. Let's really understand ourselves as grieving, but also recognizing the people that come forward and sit down for the readings in front of us are also in a stage of their grief as well. And so we want to, always be honoring that. We want to honor death, because death is a cycle of life. It's a part of it. And so we want to be as compassionate, as kind, as caring as what we possibly can in our messages and throughout it. But just to know that as we honor death, we are honoring our abilities and connection to the other side as well.
And when we become more aware of what those connections are, I mean, it's no different than when you buy a brand new car and you're like, I've never seen this car before. And now you see 10 of them like every day.
Right.
You become
I'm
more
still learning
aware.
things about my new car. Like, and this is where death is like too, right there. You just don't even, I'm like, oh, I didn't know my car could do that. Like, who knew the mirror went in by itself when I was in a close, parking spot.
Who knew that when mine goes out, there's a picture of the logo on the ground. I'm like,
Right. Exactly. Right. All these things.
And that's just, I believe too, with life, with our own traumas, with our own
Mhm.
healing, with our own grief, whatever stage of healing it is, whether it's a loved one that we've lost, whether it's you're grieving, the loss of a pet, or a house fire, there's so many different levels, or a divorce, or, whatever it may be, and whatever you're going through, there's so many levels of it. And nobody's walked in the same shoes. You can
Right.
say you've walked in similar, and like you said, be compassionate about it and move forward through it.
Yes.
But there is no user manual to life. We didn't get it
No,
when we were born, right? Like
no, no.
it just is we're all here just kind of floating around trying to figure it out. And as for me, figuring it out is, when it aligns in another program or something feels light and right, I step into it. If it feels kind of off, it's kind of like, probably going to be a struggle. So maybe
Right.
not the right
And
time.
again, that offness, sometimes that feeling can be an absolute no. The universe is saying, no, that's not the direction for you to go in. But the offness can also be, it's just not time for that. It's just like, we don't want to push that, we just don't want to, we want to honor it for how it's being represented to us in it. It really comes into, where we look at really trusting the energy, trusting I always said this in another call, we can't even say trusting our intuition, because being a medium, we go beyond intuition. We are not relying on the basis of intuition in order to navigate our life. This is very clear, very concise, very directed, based on where the energy is taking us, what the energy is revealing, whether that energy be a spirit, the energy be an angel, whether, whatever it is, right? So we look at it's really a beyond intuition. I think that's so cute. Faith is like, oh my gosh, water is my jam, right? Truly, I love that. I think that's so great. Okay, we still have some time here, so please, any other questions?
The other thing that I'd like to say too is just to never give up on yourself.
Right.
That's such a huge thing because, when you talked earlier, and until another question comes in, I'm just going to bring up the
Yeah.
physical side of things in
Yeah.
the journey of the health journey that I've gone through in the last 7 years with 7 surgeries. Um, it's one of those things that what you know, and you have to
Mhm.
fight. You have to fight for yourself. You
Mhm.
have to really push and get a little bit, not ignorant, but just get a little bit pushy, I guess you would say,
Affirmative in terms of what you believe,
because
right?
it's you live in your
Yeah.
body,
Yeah.
you are the one that's going through that. Or if you know a loved one that's suffering, or going through something that you see is totally off, it's a generous way to mention it. Because when we get used to feeling a certain way, or if we get used to doing a certain thing, it's no different than when you're losing weight. You just plateau and you just keep going and going, and you need that shock factor to rotate. But if somebody that's saying, like, oh, is there more to it? There may be. A doctor sees you at a visit,
Mhm.
and you go in and you're like, blah 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 blah, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing, but what you know, because you live in your body. And we don't need
Exactly.
to mask it. We don't need to have pills pushed down our throats, but and go through that. When you know what you're physically feeling, and you had to advocate for yourself.
Right. You have to advocate. And this is no different when you're even in doing readings for people. Like, this is really owning what you're getting. This is what I'm being shown. The moment we start to get wishy-washy with it and stuff, we completely dilute what it is that's the spirit's been looking to bring forward to us. So it just becomes this matter of connection where you're just really very affirmatively saying, this is what I'm being shown, this is what I'm being told. And again, how it makes sense, isn't up to us. We're just the messenger, but it
Yeah.
is just being able to hold that and own it with an affirmative expression of what we're getting. Because that, when we're confident in what we're receiving, our sitter becomes confident in what it is we're offering, right? If we're wishy-washy, then it doesn't really it's not of service. Lynn is asking a great question. I love this question, Lynn. Advice as for myself as a medium who is stepping into becoming a grief counselor for children, an advocate at schools. What advice do you have for her? I know what I'm getting.
What are you getting? What did you say?
I would say, I'll get you just what do you have to share with her?
Oh, there's so many ways. There's
Mhm.
so many situations in schools, kids, and so many kids get wrote off to, what are they looking for attention? Are they this? Or are they that? But as for, for the number one, absolute number one is holding a confidential space for them kids,
Mhm.
because you don't know if they have that person, that space, that safe place, that not. So the number one thing is confidentiality,
Mhm.
and being able to, for the time being with that child, to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely.
99.9% of the time is a child wanting to be heard.
I love that. I love that. Lynn, I also get here too. It's almost, working and connecting with the spirit world before you are even, well, I would say before you go into the school or anything, like if there's anything, let spirit show you what's needed. You might even find that if you're working with a particular child who's grieving, again, you don't have to say where you're getting the information from. You're just using spirit as an ally and an advocate in part of the advocacy that you're doing for children. You're using them as an ally in support of these children. And so I found, and again, I had worked in the school for, many years, and I found that even when kids would come forward, I was getting messages about maybe insight as to how to best help them, the things that information. I've worked with a lot of teachers as well who are mediums who utilize the spirit world to get insight and direction and advice as to how to help and support this child. Because what we think they might need, what we think is playing out, or how we think they might feel may not even be true. And so using spirit as your ally to connect and find out what is going to serve this child in the highest and best. And, this is where I get into intention and prayer and just asking, that please guide my words, direct in what I have to share here so that I can be a clear and open channel and that I can provide to this sweet little person everything that they need in order to feel safe, to feel heard, to feel seen for what they're experiencing. So utilizing your connection as a medium, there's so many facets to that because you have resources and support and you have an information source that will help you to better be available for the children, to serve their needs beyond what you think they're going to need. And it's a real powerful, and I say powerful not over power over someone, but power to be able to help someone.
And
Yeah.
to really honor the questions that come in and not think that they're off the wall or anything like that. I'm hearing that, like, the questions that are going to come in, maybe questions that those children have never been asked, but that being connected to that won't allow your ego or knowing of what so and so down the hall or another teacher or experience, your bias will stand back, your ego will step down, and you can really hear what question comes in at that time to really get that child to feel comfortable. Because I can just see, how would she know that? Why would she ask me that?
Right. It's no different. Like I find that even in my coaching sessions, and I have, with one of my clients in particular, and I remember, like, he'll come into a session and he says to me, he goes, I'm actually feeling really good. I have nothing really going on today. And he said, but I know better than to cancel because you always seem to be able to ask that one question that I need to ask myself. Right. And it's where, again, he already understands, like, he's going to come in, but what question is it that I'm receiving that's going to help him to process and move through forward and through his stuff and on forward in his journey in a positive way. And so this is, again, I don't rely on what I think based on what he's told me about his life. Is I go and I ask the angels and I ask for that divine understanding and to give me the question, lead me, direct me, guide me forward in this conversation. And so just by holding that, even as you go into the school and as you begin working with these children, or if you're even, as a coach, whatever it is, you're just always opening up to allow spirit to be in partnership with you. And you're going to see that by allowing the partnership of the divine, the partnership of the spirit world, that healing happens on levels that we can't even understand sometimes. That's where miracles take place right in front of our eyes.
And those questions may not get answered right away, but it might be something that can be left and that will be at a deeper level or come back at another session, because some people need to process that, because it isn't like sometimes it's just not normal for somebody to ask that question, or even a grieving person, instead of going in with, let me know. No, it's like, what can I do for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, here too, I always get, this is the important part too, is never make someone wrong about how they feel. Never, ever. We want to honor those little babies. We want to make sure that if they're scared, or they're, and even adults too, like however they feel, if they're angry, if they don't want to talk, if they're just mad at their living parent, let them be. Just let them be. That's part of their processing.
You never know how you're going to impact that life or our life or someone's life. Somebody once said to me, we were at an event and they were making a dream board. And so I wrote on the back of it, and she said, "Oh, I guess I'll keep it now." And I thought, well, I ain't ever going to give you out a business card ever again. If this is the case, then I have my information on a piece of paper so that you keep that dream.
Right,
You just never
exactly.
know how you're going to impact somebody's life with just a presence or a gesture or a sentence or a question, because they maybe never felt loved or cared about before. And you
Right.
ask that question, right?
That's exactly it. They feel seen for the first time. They feel heard for the first time. They feel understood for the first time. And I find that that really is, in doing readings for people, that's really what begins to happen. We bear witness to their pain. We bear witness to their relationship that they had with their loved one in spirit. We bear witness to their loss. And in doing that it's so impactful and meaningful. It absolutely does change people's lives. So
And that
Amanda,
emotional trauma.
right, exactly. Amanda, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I knew this was going to be an awesome conversation because I know what it's like to sit down and just have a great talk with you. And so I really appreciate you opening up and sharing your light, your vulnerability, your purpose, and more importantly, your love with everyone that's been a part of our conversation here tonight. And of course, everyone that will be listening in the future. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate and love you.
And thank you so much for having me. It's just been so amazing to have a full circle and be able to just step into this space with all the amazing speakers. The event is powerful. And if anybody honestly is just dabbling in what to do next or where to go, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if I wouldn't have stepped in and started where I did.
Love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you. And to everyone, of course, oh my gosh, it's hard to believe tomorrow night is our last conversation where we come into night 11. And so I will be here same time, same place with our final speaker for this event. So again, thank you to each of you for showing up and being a part. Your love, your light is of equal contribution here. I greatly honor and appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow night.